Welcome to Wisdom for Your Day. Forbes Riley is recognized globally for generating an estimated $2.5 billion in gross product sales, but her record as the queen of pitch was built on a foundation of extreme adversity, ranging from physical impediments and household financial ruin to proximal exposure to violent crime. Facing systemic disadvantage presents a difficult choice: accept a secondary role in the economy or attempt to bypass the system, uses strategies that carry significant emotional risk. We are dissecting her career as a verifiable pipeline, 5 specific struggles processed into 5 emotional strengths, which finally yield 5 actionable leadership skills. Identifying how these psychological efforts convert into professional capital reveals a specific framework for transitioning from a passive participant to an owner of your career. Riley's early life on Long Island was defined by a lower middle-class stability that was fragile at best, heavily influenced by generational anxieties and the constant fear of losing everything. Her first major constraint was a severe physical barrier to communication. 8 years of heavy braces and invasive jaw reconstruction rendered her physically unable to speak clearly for 2 years, isolating her from her peers. During high school, her household's financial foundation was completely severed. Her father, a printing press mechanic, suffered a workplace accident that cost him the palm of his left hand and required 15 surgeries, leaving the family in total ruin. This collapse removed all childhood safety nets. To gain an education, she would have to manufacture her own capital without any help from home. Even after entering the acting world, Riley faced relentless gatekeeping. Operating as a size 12 or 14 in the 1980s Hollywood landscape meant facing daily, systematic rejection based solely on aesthetic standards. Professional struggles were soon eclipsed by personal tragedy. Dexter Rideout, a young man she had mentored through the Big Brother program for 12 years, was ambushed and shot 10 times in the back on a Los Angeles street. This photograph shows the neon lights of the Las Vegas Strip, where in 2017, Riley survived the Mandalay Bay mass shooting. This trauma was compounded by other life-threatening events, including a severe tour bus crash in Iceland and a high-speed car collision. These 5 compounded traumas create a level of systemic disadvantage that typically halts an aspiring career. Surviving this requires a specialized psychological operating system. Riley weaponized her earliest deficit, those years of enforced silence, into her first major emotional asset. Because she couldn't speak, she became an acute observer of human behavior. She meticulously studied how posture and tone influenced interpersonal power dynamics, developing a capacity for radical empathy. She translated this empathy into an emotion-driven connection with consumers. Early in her sales career, she abandoned technical explanations in favor of vulnerable storytelling, realizing that people buy to alleviate personal pain points. Confronting random tragedy led her to adopt a framework of grounded hope. She rejects the idea that trauma is a gift from the universe, focusing instead on aggressive cognitive reframing. This approach relies on a decision-making matrix called the path of least regret. It involves assessing irreversible losses without flinching and manufacturing a response that yields the highest degree of future peace of mind. Scaling that impact eventually required intergenerational adaptability. Riley yielded operational authority to her teenage daughter, McKenna, to integrate her analog sales expertise with modern digital funnels. The core of this processing framework is the engineering of a cognitive filter that converts raw damage into usable social-emotional fuel. Those processed emotional tools were then externally weaponized to build a $2.5 billion empire. Facing Hollywood gatekeepers, Riley practiced audacious subversion. She fabricated her own talent agency and a British manager persona to book herself in Broadway and television roles when no legitimate agent would represent her. She leveraged unconventional capital by using pageants to fund her education. After a doctor repaired her broken nose for free, she won a state title and used the scholarship funds to complete 2 university degrees in just 3 years. In high-stakes sales, she mastered the 3 yes pitch. This uses behavioral psychology to ask consecutive questions that build immediate subconscious consensus with the viewer before any transaction is requested. This confidence fueled her transition to equity ownership. After years as a hired spokesperson, she purchased the rights to the spin gym, taking 100% of the financial risk to become an independent CEO. Transitioning to equity required ignoring intense professional skepticism. Riley moved forward despite being told by industry titans that her products would fail, eventually generating $1 million in sales in a single day. Riley views the act of pitching as a survival mechanism, a necessary tool to export one's ideas into the market before time expires. This unrelenting level of execution carries a high risk of burnout. Sustaining this pace requires rigorous health protocols, like the carnivore diet and competitive bodybuilding Riley adopted in her 60s to maintain metabolic capacity. Leadership capital in this framework is defined by the willingness to take high-friction, unconventional actions when traditional pathways are blocked. Evaluating Forbes Riley's career shows that her wealth is the result of monetizing survival through a reproducible framework of persuasion. Look at the requirements for this framework to see if you possess the stamina to utilize it. This methodology is perfect for students and early career professionals facing systemic financial hardship who need unconventional strategies to bypass institutional gatekeepers. Avoid this strategy if you are seeking a risk-free, purely academic path, as it demands extreme vulnerability and a very high tolerance for friction. If you face these barriers, apply these lessons today to become a champion of change and own your professional trajectory. This has been Wisdom for Your Day.